Hey everyone, it's Michael GoosebumpsFan. Today I have another story, a creepypasta story, that is a thing like Goosebumps. I want to do a video about it, reviewing it, talking about it, discussing it, whatever. This was so creepy and so scary, and I could not recommend it enough to anybody who loves Goosebumps type things. This is kind of more on the adult side. It's not like bloody or gory or anything like that, but it does have a lot of language in it. You might like that, you might not like that. It might be for you, it might not be for your kids. I don't know what I could tell you with that, but I'm gonna tell you right now, man. I've grown up with horror, and I'm gonna tell you right now, this story got to me really bad. This was one of the big ones that people recommended to me a lot on a Reddit, the subreddit that I was looking at, where people were talking about things that were like the scariest creepypasta stories. And I feel like at some point I had heard someone mention this, or maybe I had listened to an audio version of this from like Mr. Creepypasta here on YouTube at some point. I don't really know. But this story is called Anansi's Goatman story. Anansi is spelled A-N-A-N-S-I apostrophe S. Anansi's Goatman story. Goatman story. I'm assuming that this is an anonymous story. I tried to look at the 4chan page that the creepypasta wiki that I was looking at had shared that from, or kind of edited a little bit of it. Apparently it was edited for grammar and stuff. Even that wasn't entirely perfect in the version that I read, but I'm gonna tell you, dude, that story got to me really bad. I just now finished reading it between reviews, and it's a lengthy creepypasta. Don't get me wrong, it is a lengthy creepypasta, but when I say lengthy, I would say like 10 or 15 pages of a regular novel. And it's freaking spooky, man. It is something that really gets me in this weird primal way. I don't really know how to explain it aside from that. Again, I don't know if I'd recommend the story to kids, but kids are used to language nowadays, so maybe it's okay, but I'm gonna tell you, this story, it's some creepy stuff, man, and it's like psychological, and everything about it just really, really, really gets me. I'm surprised this has not been adapted to like a Twilight Zone episode, or like a movie or something, having this scene in a movie. It reminds me a lot of the movie Cabin in the Woods, but not like the crazy like social commentary or film commentary or public commentary or anything that film did. This is such a good story. It was so well written, even for the editing, even though the, again, punctuation stuff was not perfect. I don't really like to talk about that too much when it comes to creepypasta, even though I have in every single video I've made so far for creepypasta thing like Goosebumps videos. This story is just ridiculously spooky, dude. Like, ridiculously spooky. So essentially there's a person, it's a black guy, who has relatives in Alabama. And he goes out there. I'm assuming his name is Anansi. Anansi? I'm not sure. I'm assuming that's who this person is. And he's telling the story about, apparently he has relatives out in Alabama. They're all kind of rednecky and stuff. And he goes out to this area. I think it was like his uncle or a cousin of his or something, had owned a lot of like different trailers and stuff out in the woods that were available for like hunting and stuff, right? And he would like rent those out to people. And the uncle was doing very well, or the cousin or whoever this was doing very well with that. And so the main character goes out there and spends time with family and cousins. His cousins kind of pick on him because he's a city kid and stuff. And the whole story is written from his perspective, as if he's telling you that in first person, like he's writing it on the internet for you to read about. And it's very effective. It's very, very spooky, very effective, and very creepy. And essentially, while they're out in the woods, they kind of have just different discussions about whether they should spend the night camping and whatnot. They kind of decide to, and at one point, they realize that there's another person amongst, like there was a big group of kids. Like there was the main character, there were like his like cousins, I think there was like 4 or 5 boys and like 6 girls, or vice versa, something like that. At one point they realized there was one more person with them that none of them knew. It wasn't a friend of theirs, because they had some other friends that they had invited along with this big group of kids, like 17 kids hanging out, including the main character with that 17. And at one point, when they realize that there's another person there, the whole story's tone and feel is just horrifically realistic. Horrifically realistic. It's the kind of story that I could totally see people telling this around a campfire to spook out kids and stuff. It just, I get chills up my back thinking about this. Just this concept of the Goatman. And I don't want to tell you too much about him. Apparently the legend of the Goatman, I don't know if this is a real urban legend or something that Creepypasta came up with. I'm not really sure. Not sure with Alabama's urban legends. I love urban legends, so this story is right up my alley. For anybody who's been watching my channel for a time, you've heard me constantly talk about Goosebumps books that I love so much, like Ghost Camp, that feel like an urban legend thing. And it's creepy. There's something about urban legends that to me creeps me out more than anything else, because it feels real. It feels like it could happen, or something along those lines could happen. It feels like they're based in some kind of lore of an area that you don't know about because you weren't alive when these things were supposedly rumored. This story of the Goatman possibility is just terrifying. Again, whether it's a real urban legend or not is irrelevant. I think it's just crazily, insanely written well, and it got to me. It really got to me, and I'm creeped out tonight. So essentially, the Goatman is apparently a man's body with a goat's head, kind of like the Baphomet from Satanism and New World Order evil. Yeah, that stuff's real. It's kind of like that, but it shapeshifts. And this thing, apparently the idea, the lore of this, is that it gets into groups of people and tries to hide out there. And it may or may not attack people. It just sometimes just likes to fit in and pretend like it's one of the regulars. And that's in essence what happens here with these kids hanging out. Again, they're probably teenagers more than anything, probably 15, 16, 17 years old, and have a person show up that they don't know in the group. And there's such a big group of kids that don't usually hang out with each other that they're like, they don't realize that this guy's there just kind of in the background, just hanging out, you know, eating food with them and stuff, not really making a big commotion or making any kind of noise, not talking or anything. Again, I get chills talking about it. That whole idea, if that idea interests you at all, in any way, shape, or form, read the story. Read the story. I'm telling you, it is one of the spookiest, creepiest stories I've ever read in my life. It may very well be better than Candle Cove. Candle Cove works as what it is as a forum discussion of like people talking about a show from when they were kids, and the finale is really what makes that for me. This story, from beginning to end, is terrifying. I mean, just genuinely terrifying. I don't have words for it. It's creepy. It is probably one of the creepiest things I've ever read in my life. So I loved it, naturally, and I recommend it. If you haven't read, let me look up the title again. Anansi's Goatman story, you're missing out. If I had to rate this creepypasta, Anansi's Goatman story, on a 5-star basis, I would easily give this a high rating of 5 out of 5 stars. Again, the punctuation, all that wasn't like amazing or perfect or anything, but it's more about the story for me when it comes to creepypasta, because creepypasta can usually be crap, and this was not crap at all. This was amazing. So check it out, especially if you're a big Goosebumps fan, if you like just spooky stuff. If one of your favorite Goosebumps books is more the urban legend style of something like Ghost Camp, read this book, or read this story online. You'll fly through it in no time, like a half an hour probably, if you read as slow as I do. But it's amazing. It's amazing, and it's worth every second that you spend with it. So have you read Anansi's Goatman story? What did you think about it? Do you think it's as creepy and legendary as I think it is? I would love to see what other people's reactions are who haven't read the story. Please put a comment down below after you read the story. Let me know what you think about it. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? What do you think about my review? Let me know all that down below. I'm sorry for throwing so many creepypasta and like things like Goosebumps videos at you guys all of a sudden when I've been doing so many Goosebumps videos here recently. But I just had like this knack here. I wanted to read something a little bit different since I've done so many Goosebumps book reviews in the last week or so. I've just really wanted to talk about some other stuff just kind of out of nowhere, especially with the Invisible Man movies coming out, or the new remake coming out. I wanted to talk about some new stuff. But these creepypasta stories, man, there's some fun, spooky stuff for Goosebumps fans. Because this is like the modern day Goosebumps for people, for kids, for teenagers. That's what they're going to grow up with. That's what they're going to talk about 20 years from now. About how they grew up on that versus Goosebumps with us. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Put them down below, guys. Thank you for watching. Check out the story. May the Lord Jesus Christ bless you guys today, and goodbye.